CN here. We're good.
Perfect. All right. How are you doing today?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Good. All right. So yeah, we're here with the Tampa Bay Living Podcast. We got Chris, we got Brady, and they are here with Sunburn Cannabis. So we just have a couple questions. We basically want to hear your story, Brady, because it sounds, through everyone that I've heard, very interesting. So tell us a little bit about the beginning of the story and how it originated.
Yeah, so I'm a Florida born and bred local, South Florida primarily. My father, obviously, another Florida cracker, born in Northwest Florida, so up near Jay, Florida, just northwest of Pensacola. He born into a kind of a poor cotton sharecropping family. Ultimately ran away from home, lied by his age to get in the Air Force. Ultimately ended up in the Daytona Beach area, and he then went on and got involved in the suntan lotion business and had a distributorship from Miami to Key West. And he settled down at Marker 19. Being a North Florida country boy, he made sure that even though he was in the Keys, surrounded by water, he had himself 3 acres with a barn, etc. So he didn't lose in North Florida when he moved down to the Keys. And obviously that was kind of mid-70s, so it was an interesting time to be alive in the Keys. Florida's kind of one of my favorite things about Florida is just, its own unique culture. Smuggling, no matter what it was, whether it was booze in the 20s, whether it was, weed in the 70s, through president, cocaine, any of it, that kind of smuggling mystique is something that's just ingrained, kind of ingrained in the fabric of our history as a state. And it oftentimes gets overlooked, but the whole Jimmy Buffett lifestyle, I went to kindergarten, Jimmy's daughter, Savannah, Key West Elementary, and was down there for all of that. That whole lifestyle part of it involves smuggling. For me, I felt like the movie or the song "A Pirate Looks at 40," which he played at my funeral, was about my family. But it's about so many families in Florida, and so many people in Florida. Everybody's got an uncle that knew somebody that was weed. So he was down there. He was running a suntan lotion business, and being the guy that he was. And then Colombians were moving a load down Overseas Highway one night, and it broke down right near his place. And he walked out there and quickly realized he'd walked into a jackpot. He was going to go one way or the other. And ultimately, they offered him. They asked if they could store what was in the truck in his barn. He said yes. They came back the next day and gave him $100,000 cash. This is 1975-ish, and you get $100,000 cash in 1975. He's like, "Fuck, this is awesome. When can we do this again?" And flash forward, he was indicted in 1984. He was indicted in what is still the largest cannabis smuggling ring in the history of the Justice Department. They moved just over 1.5 million pounds. They moved it in a unique way. So back then, most of the narcotic smuggling was focused on South Florida, a lot of it coming from the Bahamas. So as the feds beefed up and began everything that characterized the Miami Vice and all that stuff, they were locking down South Florida. As far as the Keys went, they were putting checkpoints in Key Largo. So they got smart after they got their first couple loads through, and ultimately being from North Florida, they realized there was zero law enforcement aside from a small DEA field office in Jacksonville between, call it Tallahassee and Orange Beach, Alabama. That entire forgotten coast up there was truly forgotten. There was nobody paying attention. So they decided to get a bunch of shrimp boats. At the peak, had 13 shrimp boats, never caught shrimp, no nets, and they were able to move the product up from Colombia to Cuba and Cuba up to North Florida on shrimp boats and offloaded, largely hiding in plain sight. They offloaded on Air Force bases. They offloaded in very different spots, and eventually they were caught. They had lost a few boats along the way. A guy named Dick Geeker, who was a federal agent, was a DEA agent, who went on to become an attorney, a U.S. attorney that prosecuted my father. And ultimately, he's still he's off the bench full time, but he's still kind of an emeritus judge of the First District Court of Appeal up in Pensacola. We remained friends, and I put my father in prison. Judge Geeker was the one that actually went to, once they figured out what these guys were doing, he went to DC and had to ask for a budget to create a sting called Operation Sunburn to go after my father to open an actual DEA office in Panama City Beach and start figuring out what cowboy office rednecks are riding around North Florida with brand new Corvettes with gold Rolexes. So Judge Geeker did that, coined the name Operation Sunburn, and also because Sunburn being, my dad used a front business called Sun Systems, which is a suntan lotion business to wash all the cash. And eventually he got caught, he got on the radar. He missed the memo on staying low key. So, race team, an IndyCar race team, a NASCAR race team, a Road Atlanta race team, yachts, boats, planes, chicks, parties. They won Le Mans in 1979. Flew over there with cash, bought the GTs from Hans Kramer, and ended up winning the race. So there's just so much history, and he unfortunately got a little too loud when he was indicted. He was ultimately convicted not on cannabis but on taxes. I was 3 years old, so family broke up. My dad went off to prison. My mom and I stayed in the Keys, and we moved back to Fort Lauderdale, where I was born, to be closer to family. And in the later part of my life, I got to know my father closely when I was in college at Florida State. And he started, he bought a ranch outside Tallahassee. We spent a lot of time together. I was went to college, Florida State, ultimately went to law school at Berry, and I chose to practice. I litigated for a while, found out how miserable that was. I love trying cases. I hated everything else about it. I focused then on kind of government affairs, regulatory, and lobbying. Got to work for Senate President, former Senate President, get trained on that, and ultimately led me to where, 2009. My father had been battling cancer, and ultimately he came back. He was in remission. He came back, and he got a terminal prognosis of bone cancer. It was all over his body. So we spent a lot of time together towards the end. I was rolling joints as he was going through what was absolutely just soul-crushing chemo, and that kind of moment for me, seeing how cannabis. I was always a big fan of the plant. I'm a big surfer, grew up in the surfing community and boating community. It's part of who we are, part of the fabric of that community. So I was already in love with cannabis, and ultimately, like every kid, you want to be like your dad. I just wanted to avoid the federal government showing up at to raid me. So I used the opportunity and the knowledge I had, and ultimately to try to enter the cannabis space in a legal way in Florida, and we started that in 2013. So he passed away in 2010, about 7 weeks after my son was born, the ultimate high, my first child, my wife Lauren. I had pulled his license for him in July, and for me it was get busy living or get busy dying. Absolutely humbling moment as a 30-year-old. It's time to grow up. Time if you're going to go do all this, go do it. He died at 67, so I kind of viewed that as probably. Hopefully I live longer than that. I'm taking care of myself, but at the minimum, that's where he died, so I better get moving. And left a big law firm, which my wife had just made partner. My wife thought I was nuts. Just made partner, youngest guy made partner, and told him I was leaving. They still said it was the most unique response to someone making partner they've ever had. Went and started my own firm so I could start doing advisory work in cannabis as it was emerging in the U.S. and Canada. And then as Florida, we made a run at Florida in 14. The amendment failed by 1.3%. We made another run at it in 16, and we got it. And when that happened, I put a group together, and we acquired the first license to ever change hands in Florida, which was Chestnut Hill Tree Farm, that we turned into a company called Liberty Health Sciences, which is now AYR. I believe there's multiple AYR dispensaries in the Tampa area. Not the biggest fan of the business because they went the large-scale biomass route, and that's when I stepped out. Put another group together, and we bought Three Boys Farms, which was another Ruskin-based company in Tampa, and we had a dispensary in St. Pete. That's when Chris joined us. I moved a team of growers from California and Colorado to Florida. We brought top shelf genetics, premium hand-trimmed flower, and the first solventless concentrates ever hit Florida. And we built out our one plant brand to 8 stores and the largest home delivery network in the state. And we built a brand new cultivation facility in Indiantown, and also retrofitted our grow in Ruskin. Operated that business for a while. We were a public company. Learned a very valuable lesson on not being public and or trying to maintain control of the company, because right when we were hitting our stride in the back half of 2020 is when all my investors wanted to sell. As Joe Biden was becoming president, it was a politically opportune time. So ultimately, we sold that business. Chris and I went through what was a crazy 6 months of getting that deal signed up and closed, and ultimately closed on April 15th of 2021. All-stock deal to Cresco Labs. Now the dispensaries are called Sunnysides. There's about 30 of them around the state. And we exited the business in June, thanks to Chris's help and good lawyering. And we sat on the sidelines for a little bit, but realized very quickly we need to get back in. The Sunburn story itself, one of our creative director now, Chris Rice, who was a college roommate of mine and one of my oldest friends, began interviewing my dad. He was a film student. Before my dad passed away when we were in college, in 2001, 2002, all the way up, Chris did his first interview with my dad in 01. He'd been interviewing him just as a story got shelved. We bought it back. We were waiting to launch it. We didn't know how we were going to launch it. But once we got our hands on the MedMen deal to acquire the MedMen assets, we realized this is the time to do it, especially in this political climate environment. So we closed the MedMen deal. It was the biggest equity raise in cannabis in the last 2.5 years. We raised $80 million of equity and $30 million of debt. We ultimately rebranded MedMen over to Sunburn as of January 1, 2023. We now have 13 stores open, and we decided to launch the brand and just been incredibly humbled by how it's been received. You know, whenever you launch something, you never know how it's going to go. So it's been a winding road to get to a point, but it's still surreal to me that, you know, Operation Sunburn was created to put my father in prison, and now Operation Sunburn is one of the most authentic and surging brands in the state of Florida and in cannabis as a whole. They bear the same name, one illegal, one legal. So it's pretty cool for me from a father-son moment. And I know for the team, you know, it's something that we all rally behind because it truly is authentic and embraces Florida. So it's been quite the journey to get here.
So interesting, Brady. And my background, I grew up in, I was born in Lafayette, Louisiana, but grew up in Mobile, Alabama, and Fairhope, Alabama. Graduated in '91, Baldwin County. So I'm sure you guys know Floribama and all that stuff. So those are all my old stomping grounds. But one of my best friends in Fairhope, Alabama, that I first became friends with at age 13 when I moved to town, is a guy named Scott Lumpkin, and he's an executive director that's done about 70 films, including like Jackie Chan, The Foreigner, recently one with Jodie Foster and Annette Bening. But we skateboarded at 13 together. I had a mohawk in Fairhope, but I'm sure if y'all don't have your people picked, I'm sure he would have interest in what's going on here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, Brady, obviously I know the story well, and every time I hear it, I do get goosebumps. It's such a captivating journey and a captivating story, and this notion of Brady's father operating a business, the Sunburn business, illegal, and now we've got Brady and the rest of the team and all of our employees operating legally, Operation Sunburn. But one of the things that I think you touched on, Brady, maybe you could just give everybody a little bit about the meeting in our Pensacola Beach dispensary with one of the guys that was involved in the prosecution of Operation Sunburn and shaking hands and meeting with him then. I think it's a powerful example of how life is funny and it is circular, and if you're lucky enough and you stay around long enough, you can come back full circle and have the kind of meeting that we had in our Pensacola Beach dispensary.
Yeah, it was, Nick Eaker who ultimately created a task force, Operation Sunburn, to arrest my father. Walked into our store after we texted him I was in town and just stood there dumbfounded that we had now had a legal dispensary in Florida named Sunburn. When he coined that name, and I actually asked him, how's it feel to walk into the store that you created a name for, that's selling the product that you could put people in jail for? And he's like, I don't even know what the fuck to say. So he threw a hat on and took a photo with us. It was a pretty cool moment. So, to see that, and by the way, every store I go to, because we're out on the road quite a bit, we do a lot of events in the community. That's kind of one of the ways we engage. Everybody else in this industry is playing a national playbook. We are hyper local. So for me, every time I'm in market in one of these markets that we have the privilege to serve, it's a litany of people coming up to me saying, "Hey man, thanks for doing this. My uncle used to be an offloader and went to jail." Or in some cases, it's my father worked for you. Last time I was in Pensacola, I had a lady stop by the store and say, "My father worked for you. Here he is standing with your dad in a picture." He was an offloader in Pensacola. So everywhere we go, like we go to Key West all the time, we have a store on Wall Street, but it's about 150 yards from where my dad offloaded his first 70,000 pounds at the Pier House. And every time I'm down there, I can't buy anything. I go to Sloppy Joe's and they're like, "No, you're on the house." I go to Blue Heaven for breakfast, "You're on the house. We know who you did, we know your father, we know what you're doing, we love it, we're proud of you, your money's no good here." So that has just been, talk about humbling moments. That's just been so cool. That was 1977, 1984. That's a long time ago, and it's still part of the fabric of the community, which is really cool.
And that's something that's critically important in every community that we go in every location, in everything that we do, right? If you think about that meeting and think about the way that it could have gone, the prosecutor wouldn't have wanted to come in, still upset and angry. Brady may have taken the position, listen, this is the person that, on the one hand, you could argue destroyed my family, broke up my family, but the concept of forgiveness and moving forward and enmeshing ourselves and ingraining ourselves in community and coming together, right? Having a cannabis conversation, whether it's in South Tampa or anywhere else, is not always easy. But the things that we try to do as a company, as a leadership group, is we want to be woven into the fabric of the community. We want to listen, we also want to learn, we want to teach, but at the end of the day, Operation Sunburn in 2024 only works if we are putting out the highest quality medicine, the highest quality products. We're a partner with our community. We are respecting and adhering to, as well, if not better than any of our competitors, to all the rules and regulations so that we can continue to do what we do. And that goes to the very essence of how I think we're running this company. And I couldn't be more proud, right? There's nobody else that I'd rather be working with than Brady Cobb and the rest of the folks, the leadership team at Sunburn. It is a privilege every day. I enjoy going to work. I haven't been out every day, for decades like Brady. I practiced law. I had some time as an investment banker. And there were many moments, many years in my life where I couldn't believe that I was getting off the elevator to go into my office or go into a courtroom. This, although not easy by any means, extremely difficult, fraught with ups and downs, but we love what we do because we believe in our mission, we believe in our purpose, and we believe in our culture. And I think all the employees of Sunburn also believe in what we're doing and how we're doing it. So it's been, the ride is just starting, right? But I tell you, it's been quite a ride so far. So
you can tell the culture. We were in here the other day, just kind of coming and seeing and did a little feature video and that kind of thing. That just the employees and the way they treat you and just the vibe of it here. It's definitely different and awesome. We had a great time.
Well, that's great to hear.
Hey Brady, I'll be in Miramar Beach on Thursday and Saturday to see Tedeschi Trucks, and the drummer is actually from Pensacola. He's my old roommate. His name's Tyler Greenwell, and he's got just an awesome story that he was undiscovered and then has become a top 10 drummer in the world, a Grammy Award-winning drummer. But, let me know if you need me to be scouting locations up in Miramar Beach, because that would be a great place for you guys to go.
Yeah, absolutely. We're opening in Destin later this year in September-ish.
Yeah, we run Destin is awesome. Up there, Pensacola is awesome. We have Miramar Beach Life, so we have several digital community brands similar to South Tampa is awesome and Palmacia Living here, but that's what we do, we promote. So I've already shared some of the stuff. The reel from the other day I shared on the Pensacola is awesome page and all that. So anyway, we love to promote, and I'll probably have my t-shirt on up there when I go to the concert.
There we go.
So yeah, there's definitely a lot to unpack with your story. So I'm just gonna stick to like two main questions. So one that I was curious about, just being like a child coming up and seeing all of this happen, like how blown was your mind? Like what was your thought process like growing up around, all this action that seems like a movie is gonna be made out of pretty much?
It's you're young, you're really young, you don't pick it up. Probably in my teens when I started doing that. So, my father went to prison, my mom was a single mom, but we were still going to the Bahamas a couple times a year, and Keys all the time, and how'd all that happen? And start asking questions, and people are always, my grandma's house where I spent a lot of time, she helped raise me as much as anybody, and because my mom was a single mom, every room in her house had a floor safe in it. We used to play with them. We all didn't go, we play with them. That's what they did. Every house had floor safes in it. My aunt's house, my house, all of it. My father was running because we're stacking cash. Every time I got to see my dad, he was always working on payphones. So I got the opportunity for me, it was cool as a kid because I always had quarters. I got to play video games.
Go to the arcade.
Yeah, I got to go to the arcade because he had rolls of quarters. So it's just little shit like that where along the way, you start piecing it all together. And then it was really cool for me once I got to college, formative years. I got to spend a lot of time with his ranch. He had a ranch outside of Tallahassee in Telosia, right by Hosford. And I got to, just ask him, tell me about it, and to learn about it all, how it all happened, the entrepreneurial side of it, obviously illegal, but entrepreneur nonetheless. They'll just learn about all that, and a lot of people may have been turned off by it, and not want to do that. For me, I've always had an entrepreneur's mind in my heart, and that's who I am. And for me, it was inspiring, but it was okay. You just had the wrong dream, you were ahead of your time. So I'm gonna go try to do this the legal way, the right way. For me, it was motivation. And when he passed, that was the ultimate kind of kick in the ass so, growing up, it was always a mystique shrouded around it. People, my mom and I always, it was when I took my wife down to Key West for one of our maybe our second wedding anniversary. Dinner in Key West and checked in the beer house where my dad and his partners used to do a lot of work, and the family that owned it real well. And we used to always go there for brunch every Sunday, me and my mom, which was just normal. We checked in the hotel, and they're like, your money's, you're taken care of. And my wife's looking at me going, what the fuck? This is not a cheap hotel. Like, what's that all about? I'm like, well, let me start telling you a story. Because, that family, they did a lot of, so you start picking up on it along the way. Now that we put the brand out in the open and the story out in the open, the response we get from so many people that even, that want to tell their stories to us. So we launched a whole video series called Saltwater Cowboys, where we're interviewing former smugglers. And once we did the first couple editions, we got out in the community. We got an influx of inbounds of people that want us to get on and talk about, want to tell us their version of Sunburn, what their family did, what their grandpa did, or their uncle did, or how they, how they were part of that history too. And that to me is so that's what one of the net results of doing this is. It's really cool.
Let me just add,
That's someone who's in the
and one other thing that I think has been so rewarding is, in addition to all these things that Brady's talking about, right, we are incredibly committed and focused on working with projects akin to Innocence Projects and other projects where the goal and intent is to help people that may have spent decades in prison for some of these crimes, and helping them start their lives over again and find a new career and find a new path, and also inserting ourselves into the forefront of some of the conversations and rulemaking and legislation that's being talked about in Tallahassee or in Washington D.C. or in other capitals around the United States, because we think it's important that what we bring to the table with our professional experience and Brady's personal experience and all of the things that we've seen and heard over the years is woven, I keep using that word woven, but woven back into the conversation about, well, what's this going to look like? Let's think this through. Let's learn from history. Let's not just rush and have a legislative system that does this or punishes those, but let's put together something that's fair, that represents what the people have chosen or what they want, and to make sure that the system works and guarantees that it's around for a long time. We want to spend a little bit of extra time making sure that it's set up for success, right? And so that's another thing that I find incredibly rewarding about our company, is that everyone is encouraged and allowed to do that, right? These kinds of conversations.
I've been lobbying DC since 2015.
Yeah.
We have a department of lobbying, so we've been, wasn't where I just want to jump into something and make money on it. We've been working to effectuate change for, I know Chris has too, deeply embedded in it as well. So that's been something that's been important to us for a long time.
Yeah, we're fighting not for Sunburn, but we're fighting for an industry, we're fighting for a cause, we're fighting for freedom of choice, right? We're fighting for these things that are so much bigger than one company, so much bigger than us, so much bigger than our company. We're fighting these battles many times, oftentimes against extreme opposition, but these are the battles that we run to. We don't run away from any fights, we don't run away from any conflict or any hard conversations. In fact, Brady and I joke about it all the time. We get our helmets, we put them on, and we run right towards them because we know how important it is, and that's what we're going to continue to do.
Unmute that. It's all you do.
Yeah, I got it.
The microphone's picking it up. Sorry, just muting one of the phones. All right.
Yeah, I think it's cool to see things come full circle like that. Like, it was illegal until it's not, until we grow as a community, as a society, and we, look into things like, oh, well, it's better than, one, alcohol, that's legal. Two, you have opioids that people turn to, but you look at this route that's being explored, and once it's like uncovered in the correct way, one, scientifically, and then also legally, and like, I think that's what's amazing with what you're doing with this company. And like, I know whenever we were having the discussion the other day, she was saying like y'all had the governor walk through and said this was like the best regulated company that they've seen do cannabis so far, at least in the state of Florida. So that just goes to show.
Well, Brady, if you want to chime in as well,
Go ahead, Chris. Go ahead, Chris.
our relationship with the governor, with the regulators, let's talk about that in particular. I mean, to me, this is the most highly regulated industry in the state of Florida, right? We look at that relationship as a partnership. We want to We want to learn from them, but at the same time, we hope, and so far, knock on wood, we have found that they are receptive to hearing from us, because between Brady, myself, and other folks, leaders at the company, we've done and worked on cannabis projects all over the world. We've seen some disastrous results in other jurisdictions when they had to operate under a scheme, a regulatory scheme, that didn't make sense. And so we are constantly trying to put ourselves in a position where we're working with the regulator. We welcome involvement in all aspects of it. We had an inspection before we opened the South Tampa store, and I was so pleased and thrilled to death. We had no deficiencies, no demerits. We had a perfect score, and that's because of the hard work that everybody at the organization puts into the adherence to compliance, the relationships that we have with the regulators. We know what we're required to do. Again, we don't run from it, we embrace it, and we want to work lockstep, even though we may disagree on some critical issues. What hopefully every regulator, every regulatory body, every legislature, every public official has come away with when they've met with us is, even though we may disagree and may never agree on some issues, we're capable of having that discussion in an intelligent and a thoughtful way, in a respectful way, in a way with humility. Brady and I both had an opportunity to work with and for and under some incredible public servants. I wrote something on LinkedIn recently. I went to Georgetown Law, and I had the opportunity to work with Senator Bob Graham. And the lessons of humility and dignity and grace and intelligence and thoughtfulness that which he debated some of these critical issues, that's what we're trying to weave in how we operate with our regulators and our legislative body. Yeah, and I'll turn it over to Brady, but the thing that goes unnoticed in all the things we do, the amount of time that I have seen Brady firsthand put into those conversations with our regulators, our regulatory body, the legislatures, the public officials, the members of the...
This thing, I want to make sure it's not crap.
The members of the community, right? It's critical, and it's always going to continue.
I got it now.
All right, we've resolved the tech here.
Sorry about that. I just heard thing, the volume, and I knew that microphone's so sensitive, and I was like, I hope it's not picking it up.
Sure.
I know you definitely have limited time, so one last question. It sounds like y'all have conquered a lot. I mean, just through that story alone, but what's your goals in the next 3 years, 5 years? Where do you want this to go to from that point?
That last little part broke up on the question. Can you repeat it?
Yeah, so what's the goals? Where do you want to see this company go and accomplish? One, as a company, and then two, as far as legislation goes within the next 3 years, 5 years to when you retire. What do you want to look back on when you're on your deathbed?
For me, the goal is to continue to grow and build the first true authentic brand in cannabis. Nobody's built one yet, in my humble opinion. Many have tried. There's a lot of other brands in Florida, but they're all retail brands. They're all retail stores, Trulieve stores, Curaleaf stores. Nothing you ever want to see anybody wear a t-shirt or a hat about. So for us, I want to build the first true product brand, authentic brand in cannabis. And I want to tell a story that so many people can relate to, and build a company that honors the culture that so many people can relate to of Florida's cannabis the relationship between cannabis and Florida. We've got the same level of a relationship and history as California or Colorado. We just legalized later. So Florida has its own unique culture and history, and I want to honor that. I want to grow the business and get us to our store count, which is somewhere right between, call it 25 and 30, and I want to operate a business that's patient focused, that's focused on putting the highest quality product out and creating an experience that's completely differentiated from any of my peers, where people, we destigmatize the plant and destigmatize the culture one customer at a time as they come and visit our store and see what we're all about. I want to destigmatize the plant as well as the culture one person at a time that comes and visits our store and has the experience that our customers have when they're in our stores. Biggest thing for me is knowing that I built a company that honored the culture and honored Florida. And ultimately, if we do that, then the financial side of it will take care of itself.
That's awesome.
Excellent.
Well, hey guys, we appreciate very much you having us over here. Do you have anything else that you'd like to add? We want to just be sure we're aware of your time.
No, this was great, man. I appreciate it. I'd love to do it again too. When I'm over there, I'd love to try to meet you guys when I'm in town.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
It'll be way less of a shit show.
Well, it's pretty For our first Zoom, I thought it was pretty
Yeah.
good actually. We'd like to tour the. I think she'd mentioned touring the plant, that kind, or
Yeah,
touring
for
the
sure.
Farm or whatever.
We should do it.
The only
We should
thing
do it.
we'll definitely set that up. The only thing I want to add is just very quickly two things, 30 seconds. One, so thankful for you guys to come over here and give us a chance to
Absolutely.
tell the story a little bit more and an opportunity to get the message out to the community. You know, I think far too often words like culture and community and honoring are sprinkled around like salt at Thanksgiving. Right here at Sunburn, if you spend time in one of our dispensaries, if you go to our cultivation facility, you talk to our patients and our customers, you'll realize that it's not salt. It is real values, and it's what drives us every day. And I don't want the record to forget, I will never retire, right? I love what I do. And at the end of the day, I will stop when there is nothing left to fight for. Right now, we get to fight for an industry. For 25 years, I fought for individual clients and then class actions. Here, I'm fighting for freedom of choice, and I'm fighting for an industry and a lifestyle, and I will never quit. My last breath will come, and then my fight will be over. I'll have a fight with St. Peter about the entry, perhaps, but hopefully I can win that argument too.
I doubt that. You're a
Well,
good man.
we'll see
Chris.
how it goes.
Not many of
So-
us left. Hey Brady, how about this? We toured the thing, the plant, the farm, whatever the deal is, and then we go get some lunch, and I can tell y'all my panhandle stories and Baldwin County stories growing up that I can't mention on this podcast.
Let's do it. I'm in.
It sounds
Get
good.
us-
Man. I look
Give us
forward
some
to it.
dates. We'll get it set up.
That sounds great, man. I look forward to it for sure. Thank you very
All right,
much.
guys.
Thanks, Brady.
Thanks, Brady.
Thank y'all.
All right.
All right, yeah, guys, listen,
it, man.
I hope that went okay. And
Perfect.
Went great.
Perfect.
See, that's why we have backups on backups on backups.
Yeah.
For us, being,
Tactical redundancy.
amateur hour on the podcast.
no, listen.
This is only like our